And then I like switched back to the more like funny skit stuff, and a lot of it actually like came from the comments of the channel, which is weird to think about these days because like I don't take a lot of what like the comments like to heart anymore like I used to. But when I
Sure.
first started, it was like I was making funny reviews. Like I made a funny review of Twinsanity, and one of like the top comments for that video was just like, this isn't a review at all. This is just you being dumb for like 5 minutes. And I was just like, well, I guess he's kind of right. Like, I didn't really review the game. I was just kind of being funny. So, like,
Sure.
after that, I switched to like a more analytical style where I actually like reviewed games. But then that kind of got to a point where I was like, I'm not really like, I don't know how to be analytical. I don't like being analytical and this isn't fun.
Sure.
So, I kind of like stopped making videos because I didn't know like what to do. And eventually I was like, well, you know what? I'll just go back to being funny. I'll make skits and I'll pretend to be funny with my friends. So I got some friends together and some of them held the camera, some of them were in the shots, and we just like had
Sure.
fun with it. And I started making skits and whatnot and stuff like that.
Yeah, and with regards to comments, do you think that you are, because obviously you don't want to hold weight to every single comment that you get, right? And that's the
Yeah.
same in any art field. I'm just curious if you think that the type of comments that people got back when you first started have kind of changed over time, and that's kind of what makes you hold less value to maybe specific critiques, or do you think it's more a case of you just growing and now you don't need those nitpicking critiques as much because you've kind of found your style?
Yeah, it's definitely like I've more grown into it for
Sure.
sure. Because back then it was like every comment I got was just like, I need to like pay attention to what everyone's saying and I need to like
Right.
do what everyone's saying. And now it's kind of just like, you know what, this is my show. I'll do it how I like. But like if someone says something that's obviously noticeable, like, hey, like the audio was kind of off in this segment, or like maybe like the lighting looked weird in this segment, like stuff like that, like I will pay attention to and be like, you know what, maybe I can do that better. But when it comes to like actual like aesthetics of the show or like
Hmm.
the flow and style of the show, that's like it's kind of my choice and how I want it to
Yeah.
run.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Um, it's it's interesting when people comment specifically on like theme and tonality or just personality rather in the works, as opposed to things like maybe critiquing like, hey, that you didn't I don't know, because like there's two different things you can critique. You kind of critique the conception of it, and you can critique the formal elements of it. And in conception, you know, some people might critique how you go about reviewing a game, or maybe you like, hey, you forgot to include like certain aspects that are actually pretty important, or you didn't fully explain yourself in this area. But then there's also just like, it seems weird that you're trying to be funny while also being analytical, and like those are the kind of things that you can't really hold value to, because if it's
Yeah.
something, if it's your personality that is driving the content, you can't just change your personality because the comment tells you to, right?
Yeah. And the other thing like I've noticed is that a lot of the times you can tell that commenters don't really pay attention or
Sure.
haven't like paid attention to the full video. For example, recently I made a Crash Bandicoot fan games video. Oh no, it was a Sonic fan games video, and I talked about it like a bunch of games, and I didn't include one game that I know is very important to the community, and a lot of them talked about. The reason I didn't include it is because I had already talked about it in a previous video. So at the end of the video, I talk about like, hey, like if you want to see other fan games like
Sure.
this one, go check out this video because I talked about these games in that video. Like 20, 30, 40 comments all stating like, where's this game? And I'm like,
Right.
and then I link it and I like pin it as a top comment. Like, if you're looking for this game, check this video. Still
Sure.
getting comments about it.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's just like certain things you need to ignore.
Yeah. Well, and I think the majority of commenters usually comment before the video is over, because
Yeah.
once the video is over, they click off to the next page. Or sometimes YouTube clicks off for them. You know, it does the autoplay feature and gets you off there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like information that's like even just halfway through sometimes gets missed because most of the comments just come in from like around the beginning or so.
Yeah.
But in general, do you think there's been a shift of commenters' expectations in what you create? Because you've kind of been able to get comments from several years, right? Have you noticed any kind of change in that, or do you think it's all pretty much the same?
I think it's all pretty much the same.
Gotcha.
I haven't noticed too much of a difference. And like, there's usually like a nice split between people who are like, oh, great, like another video, I was looking forward to this, or like, this is awesome. And then you have your
Sure.
segments that are like, oh, you missed this thing. Like people who kind of like point out like things that you missed. And then you have
Right.
your other like small, very small portion of people who are like, hey, you're a bad word. I'm not gonna say it, but there's the mean people.
Right. Right. You're a bad man, bad man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the even smaller portion who likes to comment about how I don't have hair anymore.
Is that then a common trend in recent videos or?
Oh yeah, definitely. It likes to be brought up very frequently, which
Gotcha.
I'm fine with. It's kind of like a funny thing in the community now. There's like the quip of Baldman Reviews now. Um,
Right.
so I enjoy it. It's kind of funny.
Sure, sure. I mean, like, you know, of all things to get comments about, that can't be the worst, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey there. You just watched a clip from my creative podcast. If you'd like to check out the full episode as well as other episodes as soon as they come out, you can support me over on Patreon for the $3 tier, or you can just subscribe here and wait for clips and podcast episodes to come out eventually.